Hello and welcome to another exclusive tactical video here on SkaredCast. Today we're looking at the concept of defeat in detail. It's a military tactic that is quite prevalent, and so we're discussing how to use it in game, how to defeat your enemy in detail. So for this exercise we have a battalion of Eldari and we have a battalion of Drukhari. Let's begin. So what does defeat in detail mean, first of all? So defeat in detail is also known as divide and conquer. It's a military tactic of bringing a large portion of one's own force to bear on a small enemy unit in sequence, rather than engaging the bulk of the enemy force all at once. This exposes one's own units to many small risks, but it allows for the eventual destruction of an entire enemy force. So defeat in detail, divide and conquer. Let's see how to best use this application of force and defeat in detail in your game of Warhammer 40,000. The first part of learning how to use divide and conquer or defeat in detail is to survey the battlefield. In this case we have a 4x4 table playing with little 500-point armies, nothing crazy. As you can see here, normally there's some sort of line of sight blocker in the middle. If not, there'll be two separate line of sight blockers, a couple of like other terrain pieces, and then of course some area terrain. So the first thing, especially using the Drukhari or force like this one, you have to understand the strengths of this army is its speed and range. And you know, the Eldar in this case will have like psychic shenanigans and things like that they can use to bring their force to bear. The biggest threat would be the Wave Serpent and those Dark Reapers and the Psykers. So in this case, the first thing we need to do is go over deployment. Now, based on the deployment style, will really change your dynamic in defeat in detail. So in this case, let's just pretend we have basic, you know, pointy deployment, Dawn of War or whatnot, brings it up like this, or a Dawn of War, so we'll just be deploying up. Now, to defeat in detail, you want to try and spread out the enemy force. Now, the concept is simple. If you're facing off against this army, you don't want to fight the entire army together. You want to fight it in pieces. So you want to try and use your speed in order to, you know, force the enemy to deploy. Now, in order to prevent your own defeat in detail, you should deploy relatively central. So check the deployment video if you have any questions. So let's go to deployment and I'll explain why I did what I did based on deployment. So we come back after deployment. What I've done is I've used the little 5-man unit of Cabalite Warriors as a bait to try and bait him into putting something over here. I've used the Raider with 5 Cabalite Warriors and 2 Archons there. Venom with 5 Cabalite Warriors and 2 Ravagers. So they're deployed centrally. You know, the reason being is because I didn't really know where he was going and didn't want to commit to one side or the other. So, you know, generally speaking, I've kind of deployed. It's given me the advantage to go this way if I want, but we'll talk about that in a second. He's deployed or infiltrated his ranges over here. He's put 1 unit of Guardians in that cover, 1 unit of Guardians in here, and if any smart Eldar player knows what they're doing, they're putting everything that's important in a Wave Serpent. So both characters and the Dark Reapers in the Wave Serpent in a central position. So you can see he's doing pretty much the same as I am, except he's kind of baiting me over here. Now, as you can see here with the way the terrain's built, if I decide to commit too much to this side, what will happen is his entire army will be able to focus on whatever he wants if I go after the bait. So say I have first turn. Now, here is where the defeat in detail starts working in turn. And you can win the game with just your first movement and shooting phase if using this effectively. Using the terrain to my advantage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to effectively move my entire army, that's my entire army, up into this pocket. This will block line of sight to that and will prevent them from really bringing to the fight. Will also help prevent and mitigate the damage from the Rangers, and will force the Wave Serpent to make a choice whether to move up further forward and get out, or move back and protect itself. But essentially what I'm doing is what I will do is I will be using the strength of my entire army against one target. That is the concept of defeat in detail. Now, what's really cool is that Dark Eldar can move extremely fast, bringing their weapons to bear. Hence why I put the Venom back here. So Venom has 16-inch movement. So 16 inches, which means he could end up all the way over here. That's essentially 18 inches away from those Guardians. Now, of course, he can use Celestial Shield, can use a variety of different things. But all in all, let's come back after movement here, and I'll show you. Okay, so what I've done here after movement is I moved one of the Archons out into a central position and moved all my vehicles essentially up. So I've moved 14, 16, and 14, a little under 14. And now what I've done is I've focused my entire force onto that small unit of Guardian. Now let's reverse the camera angle here. So if my opponent is taking a look at this, he just sees all of a sudden a big empty space. And down from here, he can't really see much in terms of targets. All you can see are a bunch of raiders right in front of his Guardian unit and guns. Now the aim here is to focus fire, so shooting into here to essentially wipe out or eliminate or really hamper or damage this unit. Now the key here is to shoot with the stuff that can see less of the unit first, so let's start with that Ravager here, since he can see this corner, and then move on to the Raider, and then the Venom, so he's within rapid fire range, and then the other Ravager, essentially. The Archon, of course, providing crucial reroll ones to hit to make it more efficient, you know, keeping that bubble alive. So, defeat in detail, putting my entire army on one enemy unit, ensuring its elimination. That's, you know, 110 points gone of the enemy army, potentially clearing an objective. Perfect. So in retaliation, the enemy can do one of two things. Now I've completely opened this flank. If they just move into this flank, what they've done is they've essentially now opened up, and the rest of my force can just jump in and wipe out whatever they put down. You know, the other smart thing that they might do is try and keep as close as possible. You know, get the Dark Reapers out on this end, knowing that the Ravagers are the nastiest part of the army, and essentially just try and take a look just at that one Ravager on the end, then use something like a Fire and Fade to get behind here, guide them, fortune them, conceal them, etc. So say that the enemy, you know, using the Reaper launcher can also try to do some damage, but say that they get out here, they do some damage to, say, this Ravager over here, and eliminate the Ravager, and then Fire and Fade off to the corner to stay hidden, right, while keeping the Farseer and the Spirit Seer in a more concealed position in order to keep them safe. Perfect. So now what you've allowed them to do is they've kind of bunkered up, and now they have reacted to your movement. So what would be the next part of the defeat in detail here? Well, eliminate the other exposed unit. Essentially, moving the entirety of the army this way now, like this, staying still out of line of sight, bringing the guns to bear, but essentially bringing this onto another small part of the enemy army. Say you eliminate them, all of a sudden, boom, you've eliminated two sections of the enemy army. Now, the key here is that you've once again stopped the enemy from really retaliating as effectively as they could to your army, which means now they're in a precarious position. And this allows you to then pick. Now, you're going to have to commit at some point, but essentially now you move, you know, next turn you move up at full speed with, you know, all forces or all parts of the enemy army directly onto the enemy units, allowing you to either charge in and prevent them from shooting or eliminating one or other of the targets. Meanwhile, this unit back here is being ignored, taking objectives, etc. So what do you think about the concept of defeat in detail? You know, about concentrating your force. You know, keep that in mind. It has to be a very fluid game, and Drukhari can move a lot in the table. Now, this is, of course, on a larger scale, with armies about 4 times as big as the little 500-point lists that I put out here. But let me know what you think, as this is a very key strategy to becoming better at the game itself. I hope you enjoyed this exclusive tactical video, and I hope it helps you improve your game. You know, leave a comment with some examples, something that you've done, or even send me a picture of a really cool concept or idea that you've come up with. After all, this is Skari, your grateful host, and I hope you enjoyed this exclusive tactical video, Defeat in Detail.
It's an exclusive. We're playing the game.